Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started here in a little bit. We're just going to let everyone have a chance to get logged in, get settled. So if you need to go grab a drink or anything, we'll get started here in just a few minutes.
Daniel McGinn. I'm the director of the planning department. Thank you for joining us tonight for our final community meeting for the North Padre and Mustang Island Area Development Plan. This has certainly been a challenging year for everyone, but we've made some great progress and gotten really great community input and engagement throughout our process, and are very excited to share the draft plan with you tonight. Before we get started, I just have a couple quick introductions that I'd like to do before we hand it over to the Fries and Nichols team, who will lead us through the presentation tonight. With the mayor's office, we have Arlene Medrano with us tonight, along with council member for District 4, Greg Smith. On city staff, we have Assistant City Manager Steve Vieira, and from the planning department, we have Karen Costanzo, Avery Altmans, Leanne Heldenfelds, and of course, Shad Como, the project manager with Fries and Nichols. I'll let him introduce his team. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Vieira, who has a few opening remarks for us. Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening and welcome to the online community meeting for the Island Area Development Plan. Both the city manager and I have been very involved with this, with the island plan, and we're excited about it. I want to take a moment to thank the island community for their ongoing participation and enthusiasm throughout this process, especially over the course of a very challenging year. Our city planning team has worked hard to make sure that we provide our residents with opportunities to be heard, and we've seen that the island community has really stepped up and engaged with the planning process. We hope that that energy and enthusiasm continues through this final stretch of the process. Please be sure to take the online survey that will be presented here today and will remain open through April 11th. Thanks again, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Dan.
All right, thank you, Steve. I know we also have Arlene. I'm going to say a few words, and then following that, we'll have Mr. Smith. Go ahead, Arlene. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Dan. My name is Arlene Medrano. I'm Mayor Guajardo's Chief of Staff, and the mayor is on her way to another speaking engagement this evening. So she's sorry that she couldn't attend. She was on yesterday to address the Flower Bluff community, and Padre and Mustang Island are certainly a very high priority for her. It's not unlike the island community to be very engaged and active in planning efforts. I served as a liaison for the Island Strategic Action Committee for a couple of years, and so I'm familiar with the great folks that live out on the island, and I learned so much from them, and their passion for their community and their activism is really special. It's a really special community, and so we're excited for the progress that's been made in the plan. And thank you to the Planning Committee for all of your outreach, and echoing Steve's comment, doing that during in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, that's definitely something to add a notch to. That's incredible. And so if we can be of assistance in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I'm in the middle of taking the survey myself, but I feel like I've been taking it for 8 hours, because I go and I answer a couple questions and then I get distracted and I come back, but I promise I'm going to make it through the entire survey. So thank you for inviting the mayor's office to be here this evening, and I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Arlene. And Mr. Smith, hopefully your audio is still working.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I can't tell you how much I appreciate everybody's interest in this. This is very important as we close out this chapter of the online community meetings with it. And as we all know, that the island is changing, and maybe quicker than what we were thinking. So as they're working out a master plan for the old Slitterbond/ways on this, what we're doing here today is extremely important for we decision makers on how we move forward. And even though this is our last online community meeting, we have other opportunities that Dan will be going in more detail about comments and public hearings and things as we find out what the plans are for the old Slitterbond properties. So I appreciate everybody on here. A big shout out. William Golston is on. William chaired the 2016 Area Development Plan. Thank you. Brud Jones, very active. Thanks for all your service, your 6 years in ISAC with it, and everybody else in the community, because this is a community plan. So when we look at what we should do going forward, since this is a community plan, it's a very important guidepost for the city council in making those decisions. Again, thank you. Thank you, staff, for all the work you put in, and the Freeze team. So let's on with the show.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And Shad, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. My name is Shad Como. I serve as a project manager for Freeze and Nichols. I also have with me tonight Alexis Garcia, who is serving as the lead planner for this area development plan, and Eliana Tully, who is a project planner with Freeze and Nichols as well. So a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to address with you before we dive into the presentation. This meeting is being recorded, so if you miss anything, you'll have the opportunity to be able to view it at a later time. Your microphones have been muted, but we would encourage you to enter your questions in the Q&A box that you see here highlighted at the bottom of the screen. Those questions will be addressed during the presentation. We would encourage you to enter questions that are related to tonight's presentation and the area development plan. If there are some questions that are outside of those parameters, they will still be addressed, but they will be addressed at a later date online. You'll see the audio settings as well. If you need to minimize any network activity to reduce disruptions, please do so at this time. Also want to mention that this meeting and presentation is being broadcast on Facebook Live. Your questions can be entered in the comment box there. Again, those ADP and presentation related questions will be addressed at a later time during this presentation. So those will be recorded as well. So before we get started, we have a interactive polling question that we'd like to provide to you at this time. And so we want to know, how have you been involved in this ADP process so far? So you'll see your choices there. Just like to get a good understanding of who we have on the line with us this evening.
And we also welcome those on social media to enter into the comment box if maybe this is your first time, if you've participated in the surveys, if you've checked out the online website, or if you've attended any of our community meetings. You can let us know in the comment box. We've got a lot of feedback coming in. Looks like quite a few people, this is their first meeting. So I'll leave it open for just a couple more moments to allow those online to enter into the comment box. Eliana, is there any feedback from social media?
I do not have any on YouTube or Facebook. Oh, I do have a first timer on Facebook.
All right, looking at the Zoom poll, 58%, this is their first time, but quite a few have seen the project website, taken our surveys. We thank you for that input, and have attended our community meetings. So I'm going to end the poll.
Thank you, Alexis. So to give you a rundown of what we'll cover this evening, we want to give you some background and history about the plan and the planning process. Alexis is going to go through a little bit more detail regarding the draft plan and highlight some elements and contents of the document. Alexis is also going to give you an overview of the online open house. Again, we encourage you to participate in that, especially if this is your first time. You'll have the opportunity to be able to participate and give some feedback related to the draft plan. And then we'll discuss next steps, and we will take questions at that time. So the area development plans are an initiative of the Plan CC, which is the city's comprehensive plan. In the comprehensive plan, it identifies 9 areas known as the area development plans. These plans are being updated and have started about 3 years ago. The city is going to update all 9 of these plans at the conclusion of the area development plan process. So what you see here on the screen is the boundaries for the Padre Mustang Island Area Development Plan and its relationship and context to the rest of the city. And one of the things that this plan does, it's a highly graphic plan. You won't find a lot of fluff in this plan, but what you will find is some detailed content related to the vision themes, policy initiative action items, and future capital projects. And so it's a highly graphic document, an easy read, but a lot of meat and material in there to give the city as well as this area and other organizations' guidance in how to develop and implement the vision of this plan. In terms of the process that we've been going through this, we started last year, pre-COVID. We attended a community meeting in person. However, we had to continue virtually. But the plan did not skip a beat. We had several advisory committee meetings, focus groups. We got a lot of information from the community in order to keep the process going. And so tonight, what you'll be seeing is the combination of all of the input and the work that has been done up to this point. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis to give you a little bit more detail regarding the draft plan.
Thank you, Shad. So like Shad said, this is an overview of what is in the plan. A lot of the graphics that you're going to see are from the plan. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of detail about about the plan, what's in it, and what the goals are. So here we have a little bit of demographics. As they say, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been. And so here we just have a snapshot of the characteristics of the island. As you can see, it's had steady growth over the years and projected to have more in the future. You can also see under population that the average annual growth rate for the island is significantly higher than that of the city. Here we also have a breakdown of the race and ethnicity and age for the island. Under housing, you can also see a breakdown of the occupied housing units of vacancy, renter occupied and owner occupied. And you can see that there is a large amount of owner occupied on the island. You also have the median household income and median home value, as well as the educational attainment, a breakdown for the island. As Shad said, we had a robust engagement process. Here you can see each of the different activities that took place during this process. We've had 4 advisory committee meetings with 1 more coming up. We launched a survey in spring of last year. It was open from March to May, and we got a lot of feedback from that. And I'll give you a little bit of information in the following slides. We've had several community meetings that have been very successful, along with online open houses, in order to gather feedback from the community. So following this meeting, we'll have the online open house, which is open right now, and then we'll have 1 more advisory committee meeting before adoption. Like I said, we had an online survey that was open in spring of 2020. We had 518 respondents. Some of the questions that we asked were, what's important to the community? And you can see that the top 3 were related to environmental, mix of land use, and utilities. And some of these things were echoed throughout the process about how the island has such great natural resources that are assets for the community, and how there's a desire for future growth and maintaining that balance. So you can also see, what is your favorite thing about Padre Mustang Island? 80% of the respondents said nature, open space, and beach areas, which is very obvious when you're going and you have such great beaches here on the island. Some of the major concerns are, some of the environmental concerns are hurricanes and major storms, which is relevant on an island community. There's also 51% believe that the perception of crime, or perception of crime, is one of the greatest social issues. And then also some of the greatest infrastructure issues are related to poor pavement or pavement conditions, inability to walk or bike, and a lack of golf cart or off-road vehicle access. And so these are some of the things that we definitely wanted to address going into the future, making sure that we're creating a plan that highlights the assets on the island, the natural areas, allowing for future development, and creating a safe place for the community. One of the major elements of the area development plan is the future land use map. The future land use map guides development going into the future. Future land use is not zoning, but it does influence zoning decisions going into the future. So this is an important tool for city leadership when making policy decisions. Here on the screen, you can see all of the land use categories that are on the island. You have things like agricultural, rural enterprise, those are your open spaces. Residential uses are in shades of yellow, light yellow, medium, and brown. Those are your low, medium, high density residential. Commercial areas are shown in red. Industrial, light, and heavy are shown in shades of purple. Transportation is representative of roadways and other facilities for transportation. Mixed use areas are indicative of areas that should have a mix of uses, perhaps residential and commercial. And this could be either vertical or horizontal. It does not necessarily mean housing on top of commercial. It could also mean a space where you have different uses side by side. Institutional shown in dark blue and government uses shown in light blue. Planned development is a hashed orange shade. These developments are indicative of spaces that need to have planning for the future, but an exact use is not designated at this time. And so a little bit of future planning still needs to go into place. And then you have your permanent open space and floodplain conservation. These are primarily the areas that are natural and should be preserved for those open spaces on the island. Here we have the future land use map. As a reminder, on the left side of the screen, you have the full boundaries that are within city limits on Mustang and Padre Island. And on the right side is a zoomed in of the larger map on the left. So you can see a lot of Mustang Island is primarily open space, and this is due to the state-owned properties, Mustang State Park, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and many of those properties are on Mustang Island. And then you can also see on Padre Island a large amount of residential in the yellow. Red is commercial along Park Road 22, and around Padre, Lake Padre, it's a mixed-use development. And so this map will help to guide policy decisions going into the future. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on is creating a vision for the future. And so as we started this plan, we asked people what they wanted for, what their vision is for the island. And we wanted to incorporate that into the plan. And so the vision themes are high level guiding visions for the future of what the island wants to be. We narrowed it out of the process. We have 3 vision themes. The first one is related to creating a safe, family-friendly community. So the first one is to continue to foster safe, family-friendly neighborhoods that provide needed amenities and services for local residents. Some of the main elements of this are family-friendly neighborhoods, well-maintained parks, having those walkable, bikeable streets, a safe place where you can get around, and providing that access that can create an island that's beach to bay. And then on the screen, you also have some of the community input that we received directly from the online survey that supports this vision theme, such as a great place to live and raise my kids while still being an attraction for recreation and entertainment, and a family-friendly community where people can enjoy living and feel safe. And so this is just some of the support that we received during our engagement process. We also created renderings related to each of these vision themes to help visualize this vision. It's one thing to put it on paper, but it's another to be able to see it and really illustrate what that vision means. So here you see a view of Duden Park, improved, maybe with some community gardens, park facilities, green spaces to hang out. One of the great things about the island is the easy access to the water. And so you can see that this is an island community. You have boats, you have accessing the water, but really emphasizing that this is a safe, family-friendly neighborhood. Our second vision theme is related to creating a blended residential community and destination location. One of the important things was there's a desire for more development, but we also want to be able to preserve the natural areas of the island and really create that balance. So the second vision theme is encourage tourism and the development of local commercial businesses to build a strong economic environment and sufficiently support the year-round residential community. Some of the main features of this is an improved PR22 bridge and golf cart path, creating areas for commercial and mixed use development. If you recall, on the future land use map, we did have areas for mixed use. So helping to facilitate that through the land use map, creating a town center type development, marina development, and really having a place for tourist activities. And you can also see under the community input some good restaurants, resort atmosphere geared to both tourists and residents. So really remembering that there are people who live on the island full time, but we still want to have that tourist community. Here in the vision, the rendering, we have a view of PR20, the new bridge, nightlife going on, restaurants, family friendly. There's even a dog. Everybody loves their dogs, but really just showing new commercial development that is for both residents and tourists, that really show an island that is exciting, livable, and don't forget the golf carts. You can also see some golf cart parking here in the back. So we really wanted to accommodate all the desires for the future of the island. Our third vision theme is focused around environmental preservation. It says capitalize on existing environmental features as assets for the community and ensure the preservation of these areas as the island continues to develop. So once again, still creating that balance, not just developing, but also making sure that those environmental features that are assets for the community are preserved. So we have that balance of development. Some of those key elements include healthy dunes, beach activity, vehicle access to the beach. Conservation corridors is something we talked about during our focus group meetings, and that was really something that helped to drive the environmental recommendations of this plan. And then also limited development so that there is a balance. Some of the community input, the word is right there, a balance between a sustainable environment, inviting tourism spot, and a community engagement. Preserve natural beauty, avoiding overdevelopment. So this is just some of the community input that supports this vision. And then in the rendering, we have a view of Mustang Island facing north with just a little bit of development, but really respecting that balance of the natural areas with that commercial development. You see activity on the beach, people fishing, kayaking, sailing. You see the natural wildlife, but also you can see in the middle of the screen, really trying to create those conservation corridors where the natural wildlife can maintain their natural areas. So as part of this plan, we have the vision, which is that high level 50-foot view of the future for the island. But how are we going to get there? So we developed policy initiatives and action items in order to identify those policy things that the city needs to focus on and specific action items that the city or other organizations can coordinate on in order to achieve this vision. We identified 6 policy initiatives. On this table, you can see how each of these policy initiatives coordinates with each of the vision themes. So it's really an integrated process so that each of the action items support the policy initiatives, support the vision theme in order to create that overall vision for the community. And so I'm going to go through each of the policy initiatives and just a couple of the action items directly from the plan. I invite all of you to review the plan and take a closer look at all the action items. These are just a selection of a few of the key ones, but I invite all of you to review the plan and dig a little bit deeper to see what all is included in the plan. So this first one is focused on transportation, improve traffic flow, island ingress and egress, safety, and roadway quality. We wanted to be very clear with this policy initiative of what the desires for the community are. Some of the action items included under this policy initiative is coordinating with the Corpus Christi Metropolitan Planning Organization to update the urban transportation plan based on traffic demand modeling. Some of the issues are related to traffic, and so we definitely want to coordinate with those other organizations in order to find solutions. We also talked about identifying options for coordinating with those federal, state, and regional agencies in order to find a long-term solution for emergency egress off the island. And so there's more coordination in order to find a solution that was definitely desired by the community. Also, a big one that was mentioned throughout the process was the congestion at PR 22 and State Highway 361 and improving traffic at that intersection. And so we definitely want to work with the MPO and TxDOT in order to find a solution for that particular intersection. The city does now have their new infrastructure management plan. And so we want to ensure that the priority residential streets on the island are included on that plan. In the next section, we'll go over public investment initiatives or capital type projects that also support this plan. And several of the roadway projects included in the IMP are on that list. We also want to collaborate with property owners to explore opportunities for the construction of paper streets on the island. We do know that that's an issue for those areas that do have paper streets. And so we want to collaborate with those property owners to find a suitable solution, whatever that might be. And then conducting a transportation study to identify walking, biking, and golf cart paths that connect residential neighborhoods to commercial and retail uses. That was a big thing that got mentioned ways to get around the island that don't necessarily involve getting into a car. The ability to walk, bike, take a golf cart to get to those commercial areas. So we want to create a study to find those solutions. The second one's related to parks and recreation. Enhance parks and recreation facilities to provide various activities and entertainment for all ages. Some of the key actions from the plan are to fully develop the existing parks, not necessarily new parks, but the existing parks such as Jackfish, Aquarius, Commodores, Village, and Duden parks, and include those on the parks master plan. And so this is an example of coordinating with other city plans and city departments in order to facilitate a comprehensive future for the city, or for the island. Improving and maintaining the Packery Channel recreation facilities. Some of these projects are already in the works, but we want to make sure that we're improving the Packery Channel rec facilities. We also want to look at means in order to maintain the beaches, finding those funding mechanisms in order to have continuous maintenance that can be a sustainable process. And then exploring the development of a multi-purpose meeting facility. This is something that was actually on the last ADP, and we wanted to make sure that it was continued on this one because it's still important to the community. The third policy initiative deals with tourism. As an island, it is a tourist community, and one of the major attractions is the beach. So we want to find a way that we can expand tourism on the island by increasing marketing efforts and providing a variety of events and attractions. This is something that was expressed in the survey and the focus groups from the committee. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had a policy initiative that focused on tourism. Some of those things involve signage requirements, creating signs that are coordinated and have an identity of the island, have a character that go with the island. Promoting more of tourist-oriented uses along the major corridor of PR 22 and State Highway 361. And that makes a lot of sense. Where we have commercial on the future land use map, we want to put those tourist activities. We want to encourage the development of full service marina along Lake Padre to open up Padre Island to recreational sailing and power vessels. This is something that was mentioned in the survey as well as our focus groups. And so we wanted to make sure that there was an action item directly related to that. We also talked about encouraging a festival site. So instead of having festivals all over the place or on the beach, there is a dedicated area just for festivals to help facilitate those types of events. And then we want to create more of destination recreation entertainment options, and especially partnering with Visit Corpus Christi and creating a focus campaign specifically to promote the island. The fourth policy initiative deals with environmental. Protect and monitor natural resources and assets critical to the health of the barrier islands and regional ecosystem. Many of these projects do involve coordinating with other entities as well as updating some existing plans. And so we want to encourage the protection of sensitive wildlife habitats. We want to coordinate with other responsible agencies to update the Joint Erosion Response Plan. That was something that was very important to the committee to make sure that we're updating these plans and implementing them. We also want to establish a baseline and sufficient funding to support sustainable monitoring of the beach and dune resources. This is something that came up during the focus groups, that it's one thing to improve the dunes and the beach facilities, but you can't know exactly what's happening unless you have a monitoring and a sustainable process to do so. And then we have 4.11, implement dune construction and repair methods recommended by the Dune Protection and Improvement Manual for the Texas Gulf Coast. Improving stormwater infrastructure to address flooding on roadways. This might involve low impact development techniques such as bioswales and permeable parking surfaces, and working with the Texas General Land Office and local environmental and community organizations to implement restoration projects on Mustang and Padre Island. The fifth initiative has to do with connectivity. And so we did talk about transportation earlier, but this one has more to do with creating that connectivity amongst the island. So accommodate safe, efficient movement of pedestrians, bikes, and golf carts throughout the island. Some of these things involve updating the MPO strategic plan for active mobility, creating a sidewalk network that provides connectivity throughout the island, making roadway and trail improvements to create a community that can be easily traveled from beach to bay, coordinating with Corpus Christi RTA to create increased transit service to and from the island, in just one more way to help relieve traffic on the island, as well as creating another way for local residents to get on and off the island without having to drive. Then coordinating with the MPO and TxDOT to evaluate options for providing pedestrian and bicycle connections to Flower Bluff. That is something that was mentioned multiple times, is there a way to bike to the island or from the island? And so just exploring what kind of options are available for that. And then especially incorporating ADA accessibility in all pedestrian connectivity improvements. We want to make sure that all people are accommodated on the island. And our last policy initiative deals with development. Support and encourage compatible and context-sensitive development that provides a mix of land uses and respects the environment. So once again, that idea of we want to promote development, but we do want to create that balance. We don't want to overdevelop when we have such great assets that need to be preserved on the island. So a couple of those requirements are, or some of those action items are updating the building codes to encourage new construction to implement resilient building standards, reviewing the existing plan unit developments on the island to determine what elements are involved in those codes and what could be created into a new base zoning district instead. We also want to identify those priority wetland habitats on public lands that should be preserved and restored, and develop a program to facilitate development and mitigation requirements. We also want to create, in terms of development, create a consistent theme and character for the island, businesses that create a sense of place. This pairs well with the tourist policy initiative on creating that sense of place, that island character, so it promotes development as well as promoting development. And then we also want to encourage the development of locally owned boutique style retail and entertainment venues. And one of those sub action items that I wanted to include is work with the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Center and the Del Mar Small Business Center to identify opportunities that encourage and incentivize small business development. So this is a place where we can coordinate and pinpoint that we're looking to encourage small business development on the island. And the last one here is to improve water and wastewater infrastructure to support future development along PR 22. It was mentioned a lot about new development, but we need to make sure that that infrastructure is in place to facilitate that kind of development. So the last section of the plan, we have the vision, that long range view, the policy initiatives, that those actions that the cities can take to help support that vision. And then now we're on to public investment initiatives. These are capital improvements or programs that can be implemented, those physical things that can be implemented in order to support the policy initiatives and support the vision to have a comprehensive plan for the island. Each of the public investment initiatives were separated into 3 timeframes. As much as we'd love to put everything on the short term, we just can't. We don't have the time, we don't have the money. So we tried to think about those things that are on that short-term scope, but we also have projects in the midterm and the long term in order to identify when they'll be implemented. So some of the projects you can see here listed on the left are the projects with their associated number, and they are identified on the map on the right. When you take a look at the map, you can really dig into where each of these projects are located on the map and the full list of projects. But some of the things I want to identify are on the park and trail improvements. We've identified improvements to Duden Park, Aquarius Park, Billish Park, the Packery Channel Park. Under the street improvements, S1 Park Road 22 Bridge is first on the list, as well as beach access road improvements and several improvements to PR 22 related to access and frontage roads. And then you can also see on this second column, many of these rehabilitation projects, these are on the 3-year implementation maintenance program plan for the city. And here you can see on S24, it identifies further roadway improvements going on into the future. And then we also have several improvements to utility and infrastructure, such as the Packery Channel water line, Sand Dollar pump station, but also a couple of improvements to the Whitecap wastewater treatment plant. In the midterm, there's a fewer projects, but it's still important. Some things like seawall repairs. This would be private owner funded, but we just want to recognize it as something that's definitely desired by the community. So it's something that the city can coordinate on and make sure that it gets implemented. Also, some more park improvements, as well as some projects from the General Land Office Texas Coastal Resiliency Plan. P14, 15, and 16 are directly from that plan. We want to incorporate them here so that we can make sure that the city is coordinating with this agency so that these improvements are made. And in the long term, we have a couple of projects. Some aren't mapped because they have more to do with coordination and planning. But we have a bike path from Valley Park to Padre Island National Seashore, and you can see that here with P17. And then the multi-purpose community meeting facility. This is just coordination and planning for the future on where it could be, but it's not mapped on, because it does not exist. And then also working on implementation of the mobility plan phase 2. So this is just an overview of the information in the plan. You'll recognize that a lot of the information looks the exact same because I took it from the plan. So what's most important is we want to hear from you. Now that we have the draft plan, it's out here for your review, and we do have an online open house. At the open house, we have materials for you to review and an online survey that we want you to take. So I'm just going to take a moment to show you how to get to the survey. So I'm just going to switch my screen for just a moment. So here we are at the city website at cctexas.com/island. This is our AD project site where you can get information about the project as well as download materials, presentations, drafts of the plan, summaries from the meetings that we've had. Here you have a nice big button, join the community meeting. Oh, sorry, take the online survey. I apologize. So you want to go to the community online open house and online survey, and this will take you to the landing page. On the left side, you can download the draft plan, view our maps, each of the renderings I showed today, as well as the project map. So if you click on this, you can see the maps, as well as each of the renderings. You can take a closer look at everything that we showed you today. On the home screen, the survey is embedded, and so you can take the survey. It's a short survey with just a couple of questions about each of the topics that I showed. You can always click on a link to get more information. If you do have any trouble viewing this, we have a link up here that will take you directly to the survey. And then at the bottom, we want to hear your feedback. Oh, we already have some, awesome. So you can enter into this comment box and then view what your neighbors are also saying about the plan. And so this is our site. We want you to come to our open house and give us feedback on the plan. And let me switch back to the presentation. Here we go. All right, and so that's just a quick overview. So don't forget www.cctexas.com/island. And I'm going to turn it over to Shad so you can talk about some of the next steps.
Thank you, Alexis. So in terms of next steps, as Alexis mentioned, we encourage your participation on the online community survey and open house that will be open through April 11th. So you have some time to take it. So we encourage you to perhaps head over there after this meeting and complete that survey. The ISAC is going to meet to recommend this plan for adoption on April 6th. And then the next step would be public hearings for both the Planning Commission as well as the City Council. Those specific dates hadn't been set yet, but estimated time frame will be April or May of this year. So at this time, we'd like to address some questions. All right, so our first question, what is a paper street? And Alexis, I went ahead and answered that one in a box already, so I'll go ahead and address that one. So A paper street is properties that have been platted, but they don't necessarily have infrastructure such as water and wastewater and roads. But through this plan, we're recommending that the city works with property owners to see if there are any viable solutions to providing those infrastructure to the property. But this plan is not necessarily saying that the city should be responsible for providing the infrastructure. Okay, and now our next question is on the street rehabs, the streets listed like Mutiny, Bow, the Spirit, that are off Captain Kidd, which needs to be resurfaced. Are these streets included? Or why aren't these streets included?
Yeah, I think I can take that one. You know, the first time ever, the city, we actually have what we're calling an infrastructure management plan put together. Our new public works director, that was one of the first things he worked on and put together a systematic plan to address residential streets. And that infrastructure management plan, you can find that on the Public Works Department website, but it identifies which residential streets, and there's various treatments that do occur depending on the conditions of that street. And through that GIS web map, you can kind of look and see what streets, and they kind of tackled them based on condition and such, and kind of ranked it and they also had kind of evenly split with some of the council districts. So I encourage everyone to kind of take a look at that website to kind of get an idea of where their street would be reconstructed or maintained.
Thank you, Dan. The next question is related to Lake Padre Marina in terms of the timeline and the phasing for the plan. Could you let me know if that's a short term, or what phasing does that marina fall in?
That project is actually, it's going to be a privately funded project, so it's not a city marina. So we would be working with a developer on that. So that the timing of any construction of that marina would really depend on the speed in which that private development would move.
Can we touch on the plan's funding, the various initiatives that we have in action items, how are those being funded?
Well, of course, a lot of the the capital projects that are identified, kind of that short, mid, and long term, some of those are coming out of just kind of general fund within the street budget. Some will be capital improvements that are paid through utility funds that you pay in your regular utility bill. A lot of that goes to new improvements at the treatment plants, or water line projects, rehabs, that kind of thing. Certainly there's the bond program that does a lot of our major street projects and park improvements. And then also the island does have a TERS district, which adds an additional kind of layer of funding that can go towards projects that are within that particular district. So there's always a few island projects that do get funded from the TERS every so often. And so those are the main funding sources for the island.
All right, thank you, Dan. Can you elaborate on the conservation corridors, location, etc.?
I can take this one, Shad. We are pretty fortunate here in Corpus Christi and on the island to have excellent partner organizations that we can work with to identify what the needs are in terms of our local wildlife, and making sure that we have the appropriate habitats and spaces, and are monitoring the needs actively and managing that adaptively. And so there's a few action items. I would direct you towards both the Policy Initiative 4 and Policy Initiative 6, where we can collaborate with some of those partner organizations, and if need be, identify where we can enhance what we have already on the island, and making sure that we're identifying those priority areas and being able to address those needs. And so it's really about partnering with our existing agencies and being a good steward of public lands, as well as assisting where we can along the city policy lines.
Karen. Could someone talk about the land use that would replace the water park and the golf course, and is there a timeline for initiating construction?
You know, I think we're still, you know, the developer, obviously, they made some decisions here to move forward with the demolition of some things there related to the hotel and water park. We're still, you know, we're waiting to developer. We haven't seen any kind of plans just yet, but we anticipate that we'll be working closely with kind of the redevelopment or planning of that site. We certainly encourage, you know, all private development to kind of work with the community and adjacent landowners. So we don't have any timeline yet, and so we will be anxiously kind of waiting to speak with those developers in that project. So, but right now we don't have a timeline or anything like that just yet.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Bear with me a second. So related to the Kennedy Causeway, and the adding of the safety lanes, is the ADP specific in addressing or demanding revisions, including the safety lanes, since this provides access to and from the island?
I can take this one, or at least try to. So we did include an evaluation within the project list and timeline. And as part of our ongoing effort, based on the input that we received at a previous community meeting on this issue, we have started to have those types of conversations, both with the MPO and of course the owners of the facility, which would be TxDOT. And so we are addressing that as part of this planning initiative. And it is something that has come to the forefront because of the way that we've designed the public engagement and input. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Karen. There's a question related to Captain Kidd and its inclusion in this plan.
I think that would be one of the projects that we were able to identify vis-a-vis the IMP, the Infrastructure Management Plan from our Public Works Department. And so, as Dan was saying, we do have this planning process through Public Works, and they basically years 1 through 2 are pretty much ready to roll the way they've designed it. And you'll see the footnote within the plan identifying years 3, 4, and 5 within the Infrastructure Management Plan as planning period. And so those are not necessarily included, but they do have a very great website. And I will echo Dan's encouragement to visit that interactive map to see what is on deck. And of course, you can always send specific questions to staff, and we can try to work out where things are and understand the process a little bit better and why things are or are not on the IMP.
And that website's pretty easy. It's the cctexas.com/IMP. Find that map, the interactive map there.
Okay.
Do we have any
Is
questions
there
coming
an
in on
update?
social media?
No questions on social media. We do have some prior actually on Facebook. Somebody asked, so no water park. And I think that was one of the questions on Zoom too.
Okay. And we'll probably take about 2 or 3 more minutes to address questions. Again, all of the questions will be addressed and they will be posted at a later date on the project's website. The drawing that was provided on the ADP for Duden Park is basically to improve and beautify, I guess, what's currently there. Our drawing is going to be what's actually going to put in place. And of course, we create these renderings and illustrations to give you all a visual of what the area or that particular land use could possibly look like. It does not mean that those various elements or those specific elements may be included in the final version if that property or that park is improved, but something in similar fashion.
And Chad, I'll go ahead and take this opportunity to plug the parks master plan update. So that is an initiative of the city to update our master plan for all of our parks and rec facilities. We do have our parks department leading that effort, and we hope that the entire community will get involved with that as well. So thank you for the prompt.
Thank you, Karen. I think we'll probably take 2 more questions here. This one is related to rezoning of properties. And if properties are rezoned that do not align with what the plan's future land use is recommending. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to read through these. So basically, can you talk about the rezoning of properties and how that aligns in the process against the future land use plan?
Sure. My department
process it goes through.
Sure. My group is the planning department, and the development services department does handle those types of requests, but I'm familiar with that process. So yes, those zoning applications are a very public process. They get submitted to that department. They have some notification requirements. They go to a planning commission for a public hearing, and then they move on to the city council for a public hearing. And so, yes, the plan, they evaluate the future land use, and that's part of their analysis, but it's just one of many things that they're looking at related to a project and if it's a good fit for a particular property. But it is important. It's one of the main things they're looking at when in developing the staff recommendation, but it's not necessarily the only thing. On the island, we do see a lot of planned unit developments just because of the nature of the island and some of the different kind of townhome projects and some of the constraints that may exist there with some of the environmental sensitivity with wetlands and the dune system. So our code that kind of regulates subdivisions doesn't necessarily work. The same code that we're applying on the south side to greenfield development sometimes doesn't necessarily work on the island. So that's why we do see a lot of planned unit developments for projects out there, and that gives some flexibility in how they carve out lots and how it sizes and shapes and how they incorporate wetlands or different natural features into the project.
Thank you, Dan. And our final question, I think this will probably address 2 questions that I see here, is related to the Park Road 22 bridge and its implementation, also regarding its construction and the pausing of its construction.
You know, I'm not aware of any construction delays. I'm not sure if there's anyone else on the call from staff that may have an update on construction, but I'm not aware of any delays on that project.
I live out on the island. I've seen construction crews there every day. So I'm not aware of that either. I don't know if Councilman Smith is on, if he's heard anything, but I've seen regular work going on.
Yes, I'm on, and the city manager said last week that the project is on schedule.
Thank you. So that will conclude our Q&A at this time. Again, all the questions are being recorded. Those questions will be answered and posted on the project's website at a later date. Again, we appreciate your time and your questions this evening. Again, if you could visit the online open house to give us your feedback, you'll see the link there on the screen. We will appreciate it very much. This plan is still in draft form, and so we will be taking into consideration the comments that we do receive at this time. So again, we appreciate it, and we hope that you continue to be involved in this process and any other initiatives that the city is hosting at this time. With that, if there aren't any other words, yes, Dan.
Yeah, just one last thing. I saw we had Councilman Mr. Pusley join us here today evening. I just want to thank him for getting on the meeting, along with I know we had Paul Thurman. I don't know if he's still on there, but representing Commissioner Chesney's office. I just want to acknowledge that they were able to get on and join us. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, at this time, I don't want to sound like a school teacher, but we are dismissed. Hope you all have a great evening. Thank you.